Welcome to State and Fig, located in historic La Arcada Plaza in downtown Santa Barbara.
Our menu focuses on products that are raised in the state of California, inspired by the flavors of the Riviera.
And we are proud to be sponsoring this program.
Hello, I'm Twyla Kim. I've been an artist and hairstylist in Santa Barbara for 20 years. I personalize color, design, and precision haircuts for each individual at Sequel Salon in Montecito. I'm happy to be sponsoring Get Conscious Now.
I'm attorney Gregory Lowe. I will prepare your trust, bankruptcy, divorce, conservatorship, probate, evictions. All of this I can do at an affordable price and with caring. Thank you very much.
When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go around with him and watch him.
My mother and I both worked at Lowry Field.
To keep on doing this together.
Get Conscious Now is proud to be sponsored by American Riviera Bank. It's our bank, and we feel good about it. Hello, I'm Patricia Diorio. This is Get Conscious Now. Welcome to the inspirational talk show about what it means to live life consciously in today's busy, hectic world. Today's episode is about conscious choice, making conscious choices, and specifically the conscious choice to be happy. Imagine that. So I'm here today, joined by my wonderful co-host, Stu Zimmerman, and we have a wonderful show planned for you today, so stay tuned. Hey, Stu.
Patricia.
It's always wonderful, darling, to have you sitting next to me.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. And yes, welcome everybody to another edition of Get Conscious Now. Consciousness comes in so many forms, from so many different angles and aspects of our life. If you've missed any of our programs, we cover a wide gamut from economics to today we're talking about happiness and conscious choice, to education, to conscious medicine, all different types of consciousness and the ways that we can be more conscious, more aware, and ultimately simply so we can enjoy our lives even more. If you've missed any of our programs, come to YouTube at the Get Conscious Now channel and join us on Facebook because under Get Conscious Now, come friend us and take a look at what's going on there too. We have comments and pictures behind the scenes that are great fun and informative as well. So with that, Patricia?
So I don't know about you, but it has occurred to me that there's been a lot of buzz about happiness these days. I've noticed new books coming out on happiness and media, and there's even a song called Be Happy that seems to be taking the world by storm. And there's actually even a magazine that a friend of mine showed me today called Live Happy, and I believe it's the first magazine that's totally devoted to happiness. So people are actually talking about happiness and what it means to be happy. To me, happiness is synonymous with consciousness, because when we're conscious, we can be deliberate creators of our reality and make conscious choices. And unfortunately, most people are not awake and aware and conscious, so that the choices that they're making are not coming from a place of what they desire to create in their lives. Our guest today, you would say, is an expert on happiness, and she is Marilyn Tam, PhD, a speaker, an entrepreneur, consultant to Fortune 500 companies, governments, and nonprofits, and an author of several books, and her latest book is called The Happiness Choice. 5 decisions that will take you from where you are now to where you want to be. I had the privilege of hearing Marilyn speak for the first time as a keynote at the Santa Barbara Women's Festival a few years ago. And although I had known her and had even actually interviewed her many, many years ago on my prior show, I was just blown away by her story, her personal story of her childhood, and the amazing personal and professional achievements that she has attained. And she really is an inspiration for us all today to make happiness a conscious choice. So I'm really delighted to welcome Marilyn Tam to Get Conscious Now.
Thank you, Patricia. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, we're happy to have you here.
Yes, we are.
So I alluded to your story and that I was blown away by your story. And as I understand it, you really overcame daunting odds in your childhood that really led to this amazing success that you've achieved in your life. So I would really appreciate it, because I didn't really get into the story at all. I would really appreciate it if you would share your story with us to begin the show.
Well, thank you. I like to share my story not because it's my story, but because it's just another example for people to understand that we have a choice even under the most dire of circumstances. I was born in Hong Kong, second daughter in a very traditional Chinese family, and my birth was followed quickly by the birth of 3 younger brothers. Now, if you're like me, who have been in business for most of my life, this is what we in business would call very poor positioning. Because, first of all, being a girl is not being desired. Being the second girl is definitely not desired. And then to be followed quickly by 3 boys, well, it really cemented my position as being unwanted. And it was repeated to me in so many ways, both physically as well as verbally, that I really understood that my presence, my very existence was not something that anybody wanted to celebrate. And so this would really lead a person easily into a place of thinking that life is not a very happy place. To be told that I'm worse than dirt, or a poor excuse for pregnancy, is not exactly what anybody, especially a child, would want to hear from your parents. And so, and by age 7, my parents actually gave me up. They gave me to my aunt and uncle because they had no children, hoping that they would take me on and ship me off to live with them. And actually, it wasn't so bad because I wasn't getting beat anymore, and that was very positive. And I also learned about what now we call child labor. At those times, there was no such word. But life was still reasonably okay. I learned that I can work. I learned that I can earn money. I also learned that I didn't have much choice. Now, if this is still true in my world, I probably wouldn't be talking to you now. So I just use that as an example for people to know that we can consciously change our thought process and what we've been told to something more positive. And we all have our champions. And in my case, my champion was my grandfather. My grandfather gave me my Chinese name, He Li, which is the name of 2 very well-known and well-respected emperors in China. One known for his strategy and prowess in wartime, and one known for his compassion and governance in peacetime. A most powerful name, usually given to the firstborn son of a very prominent family. So I really don't know why my grandfather gave me that name, except I took that to mean that he believed in me, that I was going to be worth something one day. And we all have that champion, and I share the story not from myself, but for you to think back about the time when you too also had somebody believe in you. So when you're feeling down, when you're feeling depressed, when you're feeling like it's hopeless, anchor back onto that moment and say, I'm here for a reason. Life is going to be fine because I'm special. We're all special. And so that's really what kept me going. Unfortunately, my grandfather died when I was 7, so I never did a chance to find out more deeply what the story was behind my name. But that was my special secret that kept me going. And so for all of us to think about that moment when we have somebody tell us, whether it's a parent, an aunt, an uncle, a teacher, minister, a friend, we told you that you were special, and to use that as your strength. By 11, my aunt got pregnant, and she had her first child, and it was a boy.
Did you get squeezed out?
I got sent back to my parents. And so,
how old were you then? At
11. And so this is definitely not something that's building very much self-confidence or a positive self-esteem. So going back to knowing that I'm special, even though our outer experience seems to be contrary, and also to know that my escape from trying to be around people who didn't treat me well, I went out into nature, and there I found the power of spirit. And so holding on to something greater than even all the people around me, inside of me, knowing that I'm special, knowing that there's some greater power that's taking care of me, kept me going. And we all have those two things. That's what we can choose to anchor. And that is what kept me going. And at 11, I have to say that my family is not poor. They just didn't want another girl. So there's a big distinction between that. So I got sent to a private school because we don't want one of our children embarrassing us because they're uneducated. I met the girl then that changed my life there at 11. Her name was Rebecca, my classmate, and she and her whole family lived in a room. They shared a bathroom and a kitchen with 2 more families, and by the end of the month, they didn't have enough food to eat. And to me, that made no sense. I was so upset about that. I couldn't understand why 2 working parents, working full-time, could not afford to feed their family. It wasn't fair, it wasn't just, and I was going to do something about it. I was 11 years old. So what can an 11-year-old child do? And so I just share that from the point of thinking, we all develop our life purpose. And I was fortunate because Rebecca helped me uncover my life purpose, which is to help others, to make a positive difference in the world. And with that, I had the focus that I was going to learn, I was going to get educated, and I was going to help other people get a better life, because it's not fair that people trying their best couldn't make it. And so that drove me to keep going and not finish high school, actually. Came to America by myself, my 2 suitcases and my teddy bear.
At what age?
I was in my mid-teens. And
I find that so, excuse me for interrupting you, but in your mid-teens, I mean, did your parents wave goodbye and good riddance, or what was the...
They were very happy to see me go.
Did they suggest that you go? Or?
No, I was driven to make a positive difference. So the sooner I could do it, the better. All of us, when television was not even 24 hours a day. And so my focus in attention was in a magazine, National Geographic. And National Geographic shows what? A lot of pictures of people in Africa. And they looked like they needed help. And so my focus from that was, I'm going to grow up and help those people in Africa. So how was I going to do that? I was going to teach them how to run their government and feed themselves. Because I've been told so many times I can't do anything. What's the converse? If I can't do anything, I can certainly try anything, because what's the downside?
Right. You got nothing, you have nothing to lose.
Exactly. So I thought, well, I'm going to get educated and go work for World Health Organization, because that's a lot of times in National Geographic also. So I applied for early acceptance in college, got accepted, came to this country by myself, and as they say, the rest is history.
The rest is history. But you know, I wanted to mention what also blew me away is the fact that you were educated, and then you had these amazing high-profile positions in these corporations, CEO of Aveda Corporation, and president of Reebok, and vice president of Nike. I mean, that's just amazing, and tremendous accomplishments.
Oh, thank you. And more than that, I felt like that the blessing I have in accomplishing what people would call career success was it gave me a platform, an ability to make a positive difference in the world. For example, at Reebok, I was able to work with our factories around the world that was manufacturing our goods to change the labor laws, to change it, because I remember what it's like to be a child laborer. I remember what it's like not to be able to have a break. I remember what it's like not to have enough light or ventilation or food or ability to even get a living wage. So those are the things that in a position where I had the power, the ability to negotiate, to help change those things. So it's not either you work for money and you work for good, it's all connected and together. We have that choice. So I'm just grateful for that. And as you say, with Aveda, as CEO, we worked with indigenous people in Amazon, where we brought them back from first their land got cut down and put into rubber plantations. And then rubber got to be much more inefficient compared to synthetics. So all of a sudden they were out of first their own natural homeland to this rubber plantation. Now they don't have work there. And then the next group came, which is people who are trying to grow cattle there for hamburgers. So they cut even more of the rainforest. And again, they were displaced again. And so what we did in Aveda was we went and worked with them to help them grow back the indigenous plants, where they can use for what they've been using for centuries on dyes, for body paint, for coloring. We were using the same things in our color cosmetics. So it was a win-win for everybody.
Oh, that's amazing.
They got to go back to living the life that they are used to, which is part of their culture. And then we also got organic, wonderful, plant-based products. It was some way that working within the system that I was in, how can we find out, and each one of us can do that, looking back into our lives and say, how can I make my life connect with everything around me in a way that's meaningful?
So why did you leave the corporate environment? You obviously were thriving there, at least from the outside looking in. You rose to this level of power with these significant companies. So how come you're not there now in terms of that environment?
I mean, you're not really at retirement age, Marilyn.
That's so funny because my dentist said the same thing when the first time I told him I was going to retire. He said, "You can only clean your garage so many times." And I just said, "No, I'm not really looking forward to cleaning my garage. That never occurred to me." But what I felt like was it's time for me to devote full time to what really called to me, which is what called to me from when I was 11. How do I give back full time? It was wonderful that I was able to make a living, a significant living, and make a positive difference in the world. But now I've achieved so much. Let somebody else take on that role and let me devote all my energies to transforming the planet for the good. So it was a big step because when I left, people just couldn't understand it because, and this is a thing that I think keeps so many people in the corporate world because we have this label. It's almost like it's on our forehead. It's the label of whatever our title is, CEO, president, vice president, it doesn't matter, some big title. And all of a sudden, people don't see you. What they see is your title. And all of a sudden, everything you say is witty, smart, funny, and they will look at you and they'll find something good about you to say, "Oh, that's a really nice shirt, Stu," or "Patricia, that's a beautiful necklace." And so there's always something about you that people admire, but then the truth is they're really not seeing you. They're just seeing your title.
Right.
And I recognize that, and I'm grateful that because of my background, because of this training I had as a child of recognizing that my worth is not just my outer appearance, I could also recognize the reverse. Now that I'm getting all these accolades, that too isn't me. That the me is really inside. The me that wants to give back is still that 11-year-old kid.
Well, you know, it's interesting. The next question I wanted to address were and I will, the subconscious programming that we are all subject to. I mean, Deepak says we live in a world where, you know, we're all domesticated, societal hypnosis. And Bruce Lipton, I mean, you're familiar with his work, Biology of Belief. You know, he says that from conception through age 6, we're like little psychic sponges. Everything that happens in our lives goes in as these programs that then continue to operate in the subconscious and tell us that 95% of our day is run by the subconscious. So you didn't have like one experience as a child. You had a series of experiences as a child right from the get-go. And in hearing you share more of your story today, and I remember reading it in your book as well, but it didn't occur to me when I was crafting this question that you were aligned with nature. And your grandfather, and I remember reading that about your grandfather, Hayleet. Yes. And perhaps those programs were stronger than what your mother said to you or how you were treated. But I still want to address this because every one of us in this human experience is programmed, no matter how idyllic the childhood seems to be. We are programmed by these patterns of behavior that don't serve us, or ways of thinking that don't serve us. So what do you recommend to people to really help them shift those programs? I know that you have the 5 decisions, and we're going to get to those in a moment, but what modalities did you deal with yourself, or do you suggest? As a little girl, you went right to nature and to knowing that there was this inner place in you that your grandfather was able to recognize that were really what pulled you through. But what would you suggest to people in addition to that today?
I would say the first thing is to pause. Because when we get input from the outside, or a conscious thought comes to us, a subconscious thought comes to us about, you screwed up again, or somebody tells us you screwed up again, or you're not good enough. That's a program that we hear most in our own subconscious, is that we're not good enough. When we hear that message, instead of saying, that's right, I'm not good enough, let's just pause for a minute and take that deep breath and say, why did I say that? Why did I say that to myself? Because most of the programming, as you said, is in our head already. It's not anymore outside, because we've taken on that tape and we've just burned it into our brain. And I just wrote an article for Huffington Post about this, actually. And the first thing we can do to change our happiness set point, and we all have a happiness set point, is by doing something good for somebody else. So when we're feeling low, when we're feeling not good enough, be kind to somebody else. Think some good thoughts about somebody else. Even as small as smiling at somebody, or actually doing something conscious for them, raises your self-esteem and puts you in a positive action mode, and it shifts your thinking from negative to more positive. That's the first thing we can do to start shifting. Pausing, just taking the moment and just say, why did I just say that about myself? Oh, I think you're fine.
Even the breath alone, just taking the breath, even without even going into the next level of self-analysis on some level, just shifts how we feel in our body, and it's more centering and relaxing just to do that.
Because a lot of times when we're thinking with our head, we're taking very shallow breaths, and we don't feel our bodies. We feel like a head on a stick.
And when we're going there, you know, when we're going there, we're certainly not being present. So what I hear you saying, and Stu as well with the breath, is about really being present. And if we could align then being present to who we truly are as spirit beings in physical form, creating our reality, that is what really then gives us the leveraging to be able to shift and say, well, that's ridiculous. Of course I'm good enough and I'm worthy and like that. But I don't know, maybe it's just where we are right now in our evolutionary path, but I think most people are not there.
Pause, take a deep breath, do something good for somebody else. Altruism raises our self-esteem and gives us an opportunity to shift from thinking the negative thoughts that seem to be running so much constantly in our background. And the second thing that's also been proven to be very powerful, meditation.
Yeah.
So just if you can take only 10 minutes every morning, when you first wake up, just to quiet the mind, and just that in itself, if you go for 8 weeks of daily meditation, it can help shift your happiness set point to a more positive in the whole continuum of set points. Because everybody gets born with a different happiness set point, and some of us are blessed with a higher one, and other ones are just more dour, just in general. But you can change it, and that's really the blessing, is that we can change it, and it's proven scientifically that we can do this.
How long have you been meditating for, or have a meditation practice for?
I've been meditating ever since I didn't know the word. Just as you know, in my childhood, to get away from what was a very difficult environment, as we said, I ran into nature, and that place, it became natural. I didn't know that was such a word as meditation. To me, it was just getting still and being connected with something more powerful, and that it takes to be, a place to be quiet. So I would say from when I was 3 years old, but I didn't call it that. I didn't know meditation.
Well, it's interesting. Mindfulness, like happiness today, seems to be really in vogue. I mean, we're hearing, we did an interview with a gal, remember Ellen Hall? And
Sure.
Talking about bringing mindfulness into education. And I understand there's Tim Ryan, who's a congressman from Ohio, who wants to present a bill in Congress for mindfulness, meditation before bills are passed. Imagine that. I mean, it's incredible that this is occurring, and I think that it's our destiny as we wake up and we evolve to become more present to our true nature, that meditation is part of our lives. You know, I say to my clients and people that I work with, my students, meditation should be like a ritual every day. You brush your teeth, you never think going out of the house without brushing your teeth or taking a shower or doing the things that you do to take care of your health. Meditation needs to be one of them. Yeah,
and meditation has proven, as we've discussed, that it improves your physical health, your productivity, and your just overall well-being. And as we said, changes our happiness set point. How wonderful is that?
Yeah, so it's like mental floss. Right? Just kind of clears out the mind a little bit. And because ultimately what we're talking about is, in this consciousness, is also how it feels in the body. And it just feels a little happier, a little, at the set point, a little more vibrant. And I was going to ask this question later. I just feel called to ask it now. And it's a question that appears in the back of your book. Or when you start asking these questions, and you know, we have these voices inside of us, or thoughts. And how do we determine what thoughts or voices we hear inside of ourselves that are our authentic self versus either chatter or some form of domesticated, imposed, social limiting belief?
Great question, and I deal with this on all levels. As you know, I coach Fortune 100 leaders, and even these people who in the world seem so successful financially, they have all the trappings of what we would consider what would make for a person to be happy, and a lot of them are unhappy because they are not living their lives. They have bought into what you said, the conditioning from outside, what we think should make us happy, more stuff. If you have the right car, if you have the right house, if you have the right third house, if you have the right spouse, you know, whatever it is. But they're not connected with the inner voice, the voice of who we really authentically are born to be. And how do we find that out? Meditation. And I have a practice in my book that I talk about to teach people how to get back to that place. And it's very simple. Quieting your mind and start journaling. Asking yourself a couple of simple questions. What makes you happy? And then just journal down whatever comes to your mind. And don't edit it. And then the second question is, what would you like to be remembered for? If you just have those two questions and just lean into where that leads you, you're going to find out whether you're living your life authentically or not. You find out whether you're living your life in alignment with why you were born. A very famous humanitarian, upon receiving an award, said, there are 2 days that are your most important days in your life. The first one, of course, is the day when you were born. And the second one is the day when you find out why you were born. And so that's really what we all are here to do, is find out why we were born and what we're going to do about it. How do we follow that? And it may change at different stages in our lives. And I talk about that also in the book, The Happiness Choice. But it also helps you align to the changes based on your life purpose. That becomes your north point. If you know where your north point is, you can be guided to wherever you want to go at this moment and not forgetting your overall life direction.
Yeah. So let's get right into the 5 decisions and the subtitle of your book, the 5 decisions that will take you from where you are now to where you want to be. Can you give us kind of a broad brushstroke essence quality of each one of those, so we can get a sense of it.
Thank you. And that's so true, because I said there's 5 decisions, but most of us...
Did I say 5 decisions?
5 decisions.
Oh, good.
5 decisions. Most of us focus on one, because that's what society have pushed us into, and that's what seems to be the one. And what is that? Money. We are focused so much our lives around work and creating more wealth, or the dollars to pay the rent, car payment, whatever it is. So we spend most of our time and energy and thought process focused on how are we going to make a living. But we forget to have a life. So that's the first decision that most people focus on, and I want to mention that first. And the second one is our physical body. Because a lot of times what happens is that we spend all our energies and time focused on making money, our health suffers. And then what happens? We have used the money we earn giving up our health to try to get our health back.
So Deepak said people
exactly.
spend their whole life raising money, making money, saving money, and then they spend the rest of it to regain their health after they retire.
Exactly. So we deal with the money, then we deal with our body, and then third thing we deal is relationships. Because what happens too? We've neglected our relationships, or we forgot to have relationships because we're dealing with money. So then what do? We start to try to buy the relationships, whether it's buying presents for the people we care about, or buying therapy because we're really having issues with it, or we're buying medication because we're having such problems with dealing with our emotions and relationships. So those are the 3 things that most people can at least wrap their heads around: money, body, relationships. Then the next one is one that may seem to be less central, especially for people really striving in the first point, and that is spirit. When people have the money, they think they've got the health because they've got a personal trainer, they've got a personal chef, they've got all this, and they've got the spouse that they, or partner that they want, and they're paying enough to make sure that all gets taken care of. But there's still something hollow if we don't have a relationship with something greater. If we forget that our world is not just about here and now. We're here for a reason and something bigger that connects with us. So that's the spirit. How do we connect with the bigger meaning of life? And that's really what gives us the grounding as well as the opening to connection to something greater, our spirit.
And do you find that through meditation?
Yes, and also in nature. And for most people, that's a very natural way of doing it. And then the last one, which may seem less crucial until you really think about it, and that's community. We're born in community, because when we're born, we're completely helpless. For years, we have to have people take care of us. So we need community when we're young. And on the other end of our lives, when we're ready to transition out, we need help to do that. So it only makes sense in between that we connect back with community. So those are the 5 decisions we have to make. How we allocate our time and energy and resources to making money, to our body, to our relationships, to what we consider spirit, God, nature, whatever we would call the bigger whole, and then how we connect to our community. And these 5 things vary at different stages of our life, so it's not static. But as long as we know it's a dynamic balance, that they're all in play, some more important than others at different stages. So those are the decisions that we recognize are there. And then we can live a life that's much happier because we know we're consciously choosing.
Well, I guess I need some clarity on decision, because to me, a decision is something that I would choose regarding money, something that I would choose regarding my body and health, that I would choose regarding relationship, spirit, and community. What are the actual decisions that will move people from where they are around those things, thinking that money is what's going to make them happy, and having the right person on their arm, and all of these things that we've been pretty much programmed by society to take as successful? What are the decisions then around money, body, relationship, health, spirit, and community that we can, the shifts that we can make? I guess that's what I want to ask you.
First, we decide, as we talked about, is what's our life purpose? That is our guiding light. At each stage in our life, we still have the same guiding spirit. So knowing that at each life stage, and I talk about in the book, we have 4 life stages, the development stage, the production stage, the gathering of wisdom stage, and then the sharing of wisdom stage. So it goes through. And in the old days, it was one way. You start from one end and you go to the end cycle. But now we're so grateful because our lives are longer than our ancestors, and we can go back to from gathering, learning, to creating, to utilizing our wisdom, to sharing, and somewhere and then we can stop and say, wait a minute, I want to go back and learn something else. I want to create something new. So we have the ability to go back, and this is all guided because we know our life purpose. So that becomes our guiding light. And then there's a pie chart that I help you do in the book too, to show you how to allocate at this moment where you're spending your time and energy. And then you say, then you do another chart on what's more important to you. When you mesh the 2 charts together, you can see whether you're
they're not aligned.
You can see where you have some work to do.
And that's where the decisions come in.
But the life purpose is something that's fixed and constant throughout one's entire life.
Correct.
And just how it shapes our decisions in terms of where we place our priorities in a given moment will shift, maybe depending on our life cycle, where we are in development.
Exactly. Yes.
And I think it's a wonderful, I think it's something to be eternally grateful for, you know, when you can come into alignment with your life purpose, because it really then gives us the juice, it gives us the excitement, it gives us, you know, getting up every day and really being excited about doing the work. And I'm very grateful to be doing that in my life, and all 3 of us are. Perhaps this whole crew that's doing the show today.
Yeah, I think we're in the sharing wisdom phase. What do you think?
Well, I love the thought that, as Deepak says, the new middle age is between 60 and 80. So people in their 60s are not when our parents or grandparents when they're 60s. I mean, they're ready to rock and roll in something new and different. And I think there's a lot of despondency for people in their 60s that haven't found their life purpose yet, and they've worked for a company for a long time, and now they're retired, and there's just so many vacations and things you can do that are not really going to scratch that deep yearning and that itch. So I think the idea of discovering life purpose, even if it's in our 60s and 70s, is really, really important, because it's why we came.
Absolutely.
It's our soul's purpose, why we're here.
I've worked with some people in the 80s who at that point have discovered their life purpose. Then, look at Grandma Moses. She didn't become a painter until she was in the 60s or 70s. So there are people who are very young and precocious, like Mozart. But then there's like Grandma Moses and people like that who don't discover their talent or why they're here until so much later in life. So
Beatrice Potter was another one, I think, too. And who's that great, famous artist, Georgia O'Keeffe? She did a lot of her work in her 80s. Yeah.
So it's some of the composers, too, also. So it's a matter of just recognizing that wherever we are is fine. You can start now.
In fact, when else can we start? We can start later, I guess, or start never, but all this, you know, the program really is Get Conscious Now, and it's about this moment and presence in this moment, and we can make major leaps, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so now you're taking actually the book and the wisdom that you've gathered and continuing to share in the form of keynotes with executives around the country and women business owners and all the rest.
Yes.
You have a message about excellence, and how does that relate to happiness and our conversation here today?
And consciousness.
And consciousness.
And I'm so glad you asked that, because right now, as Patricia was saying earlier, happiness has become quite the word. It's really been everywhere, as you said. There's in magazines, there's in books, and TV shows. I even have a radio show called The Happiness Choice. Why? Because I think we were kind of given a disservice in a way by our Constitution, because it says the pursuit of happiness.
Right.
As if it's out there somewhere.
Exactly.
Just out of our reach.
Right.
And to shift that whole thinking and say happiness is internal. It's now, as you say, it's now.
Presence of happiness.
It is us.
Exactly. So, but working on with business people, I have to show them why it is important. Why is it important for a business, for the employees to be happy, for the vendors to be happy? It's because very scientifically, Gallup Research, as you're quite familiar with, has done an annual survey and research on this for many, many years. And Jim Harder, who is a colleague of mine, he's the head of Gallup Research, they have proven that each year the United States lose billions of dollars in productivity because of lack of happiness. In 2013, we lost $550 billion in productivity because of lack of well-being and unhappiness.
And I could see that being rather circular. If you're not making money, the CEO, all of a sudden, he's not so happy. Then all of a sudden, his unhappiness spreads and filters throughout the organization, and it could be a self-fulfilling cycle of discontent.
Well, I think a big piece of it is that the bottom line right along has been the money. How much money is the business going to make, is the corporation going to make? Where I've always felt that the bottom line needs to be the people, that the greatest capital that any organization has are their employees, you know, not the money. And it's ironic because the focus is on making the money to the expense of the employees not really being happy. But if the focus of a corporation could be on what would contribute to the employees' quality of the workplace, that is going to bring this happiness, because then the bottom line, it's going beyond the bottom line, I call it. The bottom line then is going to be really prolific. It'll be exponentially greater than it was before, because when people are happy, they're creative, they're fun, they're, you know, they don't feel that they're being oppressed by their work circumstances.
And also absenteeism goes down because health goes up when people are happy. So it's relationships are better when people are happy. So all of a sudden, productivity, longevity, relationships, and how we feel about the world all shifts when we're happy. So it's all connected.
Yeah. Well, and it's all connected anyway. Everything's all connected, right?
Yes.
And maybe again, it comes full circle to people's sense of life purpose. And if their life purpose was perhaps to not only be happy themselves, but to facilitate other people's happiness or improve quality of life on this planet, then all of a sudden it's not about, you know, how much can I hoard, or how much can I make for me and my family and not share it with everybody.
Right.
In fact, these television shows on the hoarders is just unbelievable. That these reality shows, I haven't watched them myself, but I hear people that watch it all the time. I mean, they have so much stuff, but they're not happy because there's nothing outside of them that's going to bring that happiness.
Well, as we mentioned earlier in the show, that's the first thing of shifting your consciousness from negative to positive is by sharing.
Yeah.
So if somebody's hoarding, by definition, they're not going to be happy because they're just shutting the door emotionally as well as physically to bringing in anything happy.
Right, and it also perpetuates the ultimate illusion that we're separate from each other, which on a profound level, we are not. So maybe we all be in the sharing mode.
I'd like to have you speak about your radio show, The Happiness Choice, and also that you have a prominent place with the Huffington Post as a blogger there, an inspirational blogger. Talk a little bit about that so people can also find you there.
Well, my radio show is called The Happiness Choice, just like the name of my book. And I started it, it's almost 2.5 years ago, because as I was writing my book, The Happiness Choice, I interviewed a lot of experts who also, I'm grateful to say, are friends. Jack Canfield, Howard Hendricks, Joan Boroshenko, Ariel Ford, a lot of people that I'm sure you all know
all
too.
in your book.
Yes. And I thought, I have all this wisdom from these people. I would like to share even more than with the book to the world. So I created the radio show on FMG Network. And if you want to find it, you just have to go online and look for Marilyn Tam radio show, and it shows up. And so I brought all these people in to share their wisdom about happiness. A show first about their own path to happiness, and then the second show about how they can choose to teach other people about happiness. So they're short shows because I feel like everybody is so compressed for time. So each show is 15 minutes, and you can download them at any time, and you can listen to as many of them as you want as a time too. But so for 15, 20 minutes, you get a very succinct set of stories, wisdom, and insights from experts who really live some aspect of happiness. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, as I said, the Huffington Post, I'm a blogger there, and they came and invited me to be a blogger because they saw the book, and I was pleased that they were quite pleased with the book and happy with the book, I guess. And they asked me to start writing about happiness and then all the aspects that relate to happiness. So I write about productivity, I write about work pressure, I work about frustrations, and this month, it's going out in the next few days, is on happiness.
On happiness. And there's going to be an article in The Independent coming up, or a review in The Independent of your book.
Yes, on the book. Uh-huh.
Yeah, great. Well, I can't believe that the show just flew by today. It was wonderful to have you on the show. And I always like to close the show with what I call a pearl of wisdom. So if you had one thing to say to our viewers, that would encapsulate this conversation today, what would you say other than don't worry, be happy?
I would say you're good enough now to do whatever it is that you wanted to do. So start it now. You are good enough now. Great. And we all are. Just to remember that you are good enough now, and you can do whatever it is that is really in your heart. Because all you have to do now is learn the skills, get the support, whatever it is. But inside of you, you already have the drive. You can do it. Mm-hmm. And we're here to support you. I'm definitely here to support you.
Well, congratulations on your book and all the work that you've done, and it's really been delightful to have you as a guest.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much, sweetie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to State and Fig, located in historic La Arcata Plaza in downtown Santa Barbara.
Our menu focuses on products that are raised in the state of California, inspired by the flavors of the Riviera.
And we are proud to be sponsoring this program.
Hello, I'm Twyla Kim. I've been an artist and hairstylist in Santa Barbara for 20 years. I personalize color, design, and precision haircuts for each individual at Sequel Salon in Montecito. I'm happy to be sponsoring Get Conscious Now.
I'm attorney Gregory Lowe. I will prepare your trust, bankruptcy, divorce, conservatorship, probate, evictions. All of this I can do at an affordable price and with caring. Thank you very much.
When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go around with him and watch him.
My mother and I both worked at Lowry Field.
To keep on doing this together.
Get Conscious Now is proud to be sponsored by American Riviera Bank. It's our bank, and we feel good about it.